So let's talk about a possible Browns trade. You need to say anything there, Anthony, or should we just?
No, actually, let's just get right into it. We can go right to it.
So the Cowboys. I'm going to read this. Mike sent this last night. Cowboys have picks 10 and no. Cowboys don't have pick 10. The Bengals have pick 10.
12 and 20. 12 and
Okay.
20. So the graphic's gonna be wrong.
Yeah.
Just
The Cowboys have picks 12 and 20 in the draft. If they called the Browns,
imagine that says 12 and
it
not
should
10.
say 12, not.
I wrote a 10 and then copied a 10. It's 12. It's 12 and 20.
If they offered the Browns picks 12 and 20,
And drop that. It's wrong.
yeah, just take it
12 and
down.
20. Drop that.
And they got pick 6 and 39 in return, would you do it if you were the Browns? So in other words, would you drop 6 spots if you were the Browns to move up from 39 to 20 and get a third first-round pick?
Ty?
That's a hard question to answer, but go ahead, Tyvus.
Would you trade the 6 and 39 pick for 10 and 20?
It's 12. It's 12,
12
not 10.
and
And fix the
24.
super, too. I screwed this all up. It's all on me.
I got it.
Yeah. 12 and 39 for 12 and 20 for 6 and 39. Would you do it?
That's not bad. I think I would.
Should say 12 and 20.
This happens when we have a producer.
Is
Oh
it,
my
is it
God.
12 and 20? Okay.
Yeah.
It's 12 and 20. Yeah.
I think I would.
Doesn't it depend on who's available? Like, I wouldn't make that trade
Ahead of
until the
time.
6th pick was up.
I agree.
I wouldn't even
this
consider
is
it.
on the clock. This
So
is when you watching it and they say the pick has been traded. That's this decision.
I saw a clip of our show on Tuesday when I was not here, and you said about drafting, what's his name?
Carnell Tate. Oh, Caleb Downs.
Right. As crazy as it is for the Browns to take a defensive player, I'm with you. If they are at 6 and they're not enamored and they think Caleb Downs is a once in a generation safety,
Yeah, take him.
you have to take him. As crazy as it sounds, as much as everybody will lose their mind, it's
think
actually the smart play.
It would
but
be, I would say 60% of the fan population would lose their mind.
Yes.
40% would be
Yeah.
like, he's a good player, like I understand.
And by the way,
now you better be a superstar
Hold
if
on.
they do that.
I agree with both of you.
Yeah.
If he didn't play at Ohio State, it'd be 90% would lose their mind.
I agree.
10%. The
Yes.
fact he played at Ohio State
Yes.
would be the only saving grace for a Caleb Downs
Well, but
selection there.
a lot of fans, if Tate's available, and then they would also have passed.
But I'm just saying, if they were to take a defensive
You're right,
player,
because he's an Ohio State
because he's an
guy.
Ohio State player, they
and
would
Ohio
buy
State
into it.
players generally have a good track record. Certainly not all, Mike Hall.
Hey, you better watch
Hey,
yourself.
we'll get
The worst Buckeye of all time, Billy Price. What a waste of a pick that was.
Hey,
No offense
don't
to you
do
guys.
Don't do Billy like that.
He's one of the worst Buckeye picks ever. So I don't know that I would make this trade. I mean, I would rather get a first round pick next year.
I mean, ideally, if you're moving down,
Yeah.
that'd be
You
the
getting
end goal.
3 first
But
round
you would have in
picks.
this scenario, if they were to do this,
Next year, I know everybody says this, but I was listening to a podcast with Mina Kimes and Field Yates.
Mm-hmm.
Two people in this business, and you know me, I crap all over a lot of people in this business that I don't like. I like the two of them a lot.
Okay.
And Field Yates says, listen, I know people say this every year. He goes, but I'm telling you, the 27 draft is going to be the draft of drafts.
Yeah.
Not just quarterback.
receiver.
He said it's going to be one of the most loaded drafts in modern history.
Jeremiah
Yep.
Smith, no matter
And
what.
he goes, if I'm a team, I'm trying to get as many high picks in the 27 draft. So if I'm the Browns and I'm going to trade down from 6 to 10 with Cincinnati, 6 to 12, those are the spots. Because the Bengals and the Cowboys at 10 and 12 are the two best teams that stink on defense. And they're both desperate probably to get a player like Caleb Downs.
Or David Bailey if he happens to be
Whatever.
there.
Like those, the Bengals, I don't know if the Bengals would trade up. They almost never do that. The Cowboys certainly are an aggressive team. If the Browns have an opportunity to get a first-round pick in 27 by trading down, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I do too. But that's not the question here.
Now, if you're the Browns, would you rather trade? You'd rather trade down with Dallas,
Than
probably,
12, 20,
But the
and
Bengals have a
20.
higher pick. I don't know.
You would have 12, 20, and 24.
Well, I'm saying next year, but in this scenario, yes.
Yeah, so what would you
you
do
have three of the top 24
scenario, Bull?
picks.
If this was the actual offer, 6 and 39 for 12 and
I
20.
would have to. Here's the problem with just answering this question. I don't. First of all, going from 6 to 12, you lose your opportunity to get those top 2 wide receivers that everybody's talking about, right? And Caleb Downs or whatever. Here's the question. A lot of times, picks 20 to 39, there may not be a huge gap in the talent in that spot. So I don't know, like, is it worth dropping 6 spots? Is the player you're losing from going from 6 to 12 worth moving up from 39 to 20?
So we're answering this in a vacuum without knowing how the Browns are thinking.
Right. In a vacuum, I'd say I wouldn't do it.
I need
To me?
I need
Yeah.
to see. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, it comes down to what the Browns board looks like. If they believe either Caleb Downs, David Bailey, Carnell Tate, whoever, at
Yeah.
6 is significantly better than anyone they can get at 12, then you don't move down.
Right.
If you think one of those guys who would be available at 6, who clearly would not be available at 12, is worth that selection,
Yes, then you don't do it.
Then you don't do it.
Yeah.
If you think there's 5 elite players in this draft, and I'm just using that number because the Browns are picking
Yeah.
at 6, and they have 5 guys who they have the blue chip, can't miss. If he's there, we're taking him label on. And those
they're
5
all
guys are gone.
Then yeah.
Then I think you make the trade
Right.
because you'd rather have more bites at the
And
apple
we don't know-
in that range, and we don't know
Right.
what the Browns board looks like.
Right. Also, it's like you're not getting an extra pick.
No,
you're
you're
just
just-
moving up.
Later. Now,
Later,
you're
so
moving
I-
down 6 to move up 19.
Right, but moving down 6 from 6 to 12
Exactly.
to
It
me
just-
is a bigger
it
deal.
It just depends on how they view the top of
That's
this draft.
true.
And
I just think you could get a first-round pick maybe for next year. Maybe I'm crazy.
I think every team's looking at 27 with that same idea.
Yeah,
this
that's right.
is gold,
You're right.
and
people-
we're going to be hesitant, especially if you're not moving up for a quarterback.
Yeah.
If you're moving up for Caleb Downs, the historical precedent of teams trading up for non-quarterbacks,
Yeah.
which is what makes the Browns deal last year, moving back from 2 to 5 with a team moving up to
Right.
not take a quarterback, so much of an outlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could. Obviously, I would love to get a 2027 first-round pick. Like that would be the ideal outcome. I just don't know how realistic that would be, as opposed to something like this, where at least you could talk yourself into why it would
Yeah.
make sense for both teams.
I would say, like,
I wouldn't do it unless.
if I were the Bengals, would you make this trade? Because I want to get Caleb Downs on the Bengals.
Okay.
Would you make this trade if you're the Browns? You flip 6 and 10, so the Browns only drop 4 spots instead of 6. The Browns get the Bengals' first-round pick next year. The Bengals get the Browns' third-round pick next year. I think you do that if you're the Browns.
Absolutely.
Brad,
Would the Bengals do that? Is that too much for the Bengals to
The
give up?
Bengals would never
do that.
What if you got the
Four.
Browns' second-round pick next year?
Nah, I don't think you're paying an extra first move up 4 spots for.
But
a
the
safety.
Bengals are probably 2 or 3 defensive players away from being a real Super Bowl contender.
but as good as Caleb Downs is,
They need.
people don't view safety. They
not-
view
it's
that
not-
as
You know what?
the weakest
I will say this.
position.
Their Bengals defense started going really downhill when they let Jesse Bates walk.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
That was the beginning of the end for their
and
defense.
Von Bell.
Yeah, what
Shout out
you're
to my
saying is
boy
not right. I
Von.
just don't think
Yeah.
they'd pay that level of
They
premium
probably
price
wouldn't,
for
but I
a
think
safety.
Well, anyway, who cares about the Bengals? But for the Browns, yeah, I mean, if you're right, if they whatever their line of demarcation for the can't miss prospects are, if one of those guys is available at 6, you take them.
You take 'em,
End
yeah.
the conversation. If you have 13 guys on that list, then yeah, you might trade down.
You do the trade in a heartbeat. Then,
Right,
If that's what
but
you do.
if you have 4, but if you have 6 and one of them's still there, I'm not messing around.
I
agree.
was looking at
Yeah.
I remember the last time the Browns had 3 first-round picks. That was 2017 when they took
Myles Garrett,
Miles,
Jabril Peppers, and Njoku.
Yeah.
And I was trying to see what they did to get that last first-round pick, because I remember Njoku was the last one.
Yeah.
I know when they traded with Houston, I think Houston had 2 first-round picks in that draft.
Was that the Brock Osweiler trade?
No, they got a second for Osweiler, not a first.
The Browns bought a second-round pick from the Texans, or was it the Broncos? Who had Osweiler at the time?
Broncos?
What year?
No.
17. Brock Osweiler came from the Broncos to us, right?
Yes.
I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
But then the Browns
How did the Browns get 2 first-round picks?
took Brock Osweiler
Yes.
With a second.
with a second. They
basically bought a second-round
They
pick,
bought
yeah.
a second-round pick.
So they must have traded the second and
And
one
the
of-
future something.
and
I don't know. I
future
don't
to
remember.
move back up to get the joke.
I
The
guess.
Njoku was
yeah.
the 27th pick.
Was he 27? I thought he was like 29.
He wasn't worth a first-round pick. I know that.
Dang.
Neither was Jabril Peppers.
Dang.
And Miles wasn't the right.
I mean, the
number one
Browns have. Let's face it. They've blown almost every first-round pick they've had in the last. You know, not all of them, but
Miles,
they've.
Denzel.
Those were good picks. Nick Chubb was a good first. Oh, Nick Chubb was second round.
Second round.
Miles was obviously a
from
great
Earl.
pick, but
Joe Hayden, Joe Thomas
Yep.
were good first-round picks. Mason Graham, we'll see.
TBD.
He wasn't worth being picked that high, but he's probably a first-round pick.
Have the Browns blown?
well, if you're going off that logic,
Yeah.
I mean, Miles is obviously an incredible player,
But he shouldn't have been number
Mahomes
one.
was the number one
Right.
pick in that draft
Mahomes
in a
should have been.
redraft. Yeah.
It should have been, even though he's a disaster now, it should have been Mahomes then Watson.
Watson, yeah.
From Earl, real quick, by the way, guys. 2017, Browns traded back, gained another first plus the first in 2018.
Yeah.
So they got a future first.
And then who'd they draft in the first round in 18 was
Miles, Peppers, and Njoku are the three.
was
names
17.
That was
18 was
17.
Baker.
I gotta go
18 was
with
Baker and Denzel.
And Denzel, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they were talking about Bradley Chubb. Everybody thought they were going to draft Bradley Chubb.
He's a free agent.
They just got
Well,
released.
the Dolphins just cut like 6 guys.
Yeah. They trying to trade Minka too.
See, that's another area. That's the Bengals. They should be trading for Minka Fitzpatrick. They should trade for Minka Fitzpatrick. They should trade for Kenny Clark from Dallas. Let's go.
They
Stop
getting
messing
rid
around.
of Kenny Clark in Dallas.
Cap casualty potentially.
They just got him.
I would trade a 5th round pick for
They just
or a 6th round
traded-
pick for those 2 guys.